สวัสดีครับทุกคนครับยินดีต้อนรับครับ Welcome again to another coding session. Today we're going to continue off with where we left off the last time with spot skills. And today we are going to focus on our um, hero section or home section, about here, or the main section, showcase section. In this section here, we're going to try and make it look like our web page in this area. And so we want our picture of this computer, subwoofer, whatever it is, over on this side. We want our text to show up next to it over here. And we want our search bar to be extended all the way at the bottom here. And so today I'm going to introduce you to floats. ถ้าไม่เคยมีประสบการณ์กับ floats เป็นลำบากมากแต่เป็นวิธีในสมัยก่อนใช้ arrangement ของ web page. So today I'm going to focus on using floats up here. And then when we get down to these sections here, I'm going to show you how to use flexbox and grid. But today I want to show you a older way that you still may see. And hopefully this doesn't confuse you. ถ้าเกิดว่าเห็นเว็บเพจเก่าอาจจะเห็นว่า clear float or float left float right ก็คิดว่าโอ้ยซับซ้อนมากลำบากมากไม่เข้าใจเกิดอะไร I'm going to show you how to break that down. All right, so let's get started. How do we get this section to look very similar to, how do we get our section to look much similar to this? So what I'm going to do is first focus on the showcase woofer and show you what float left and float right do. So I'm going to type in float right. That's it. And all of a sudden we see our image go all the way to the right hand side inside our screen, and then everything else shift up. That's very confusing. ทำไม? Because in a float, we remove this element from the HTML. So the HTML is no longer applying to this element. So all the other elements, all these other text things don't know that this picture exists. They think it's gone. We know it exists because we see it, but all the other elements in here think it's gone and doesn't exist. So to them, it's basically the same thing as saying, okay, ลบแล้ว. But for us in reality, it's still there. So how do we fix this and how do we correct this? Well, we want to give the other side, the unlimited web hosting side, we want to be able to do that with a float left. So now we'll see what happens with a float left. And now we've got, wait a minute, this is getting really confusing really fast. What happened to my background? What happened to all this stuff? Why is it all the way up here? Where did it go? It's very confusing. Agreed. And so what we have to do is make our showcase background big enough to be able to encompass everything we're seeing. So we want to give this a min height of 900 pixels. Once we give it a minimum height of 900 pixels, หายใจได้หายใจเข้าหายใจออกได้ we can breathe in, we can breathe out. Things are back to normal. Why did I have to add in a height here? ถ้าเกิดว่าผมลบ height, what happens? So this element is just a background. It's got barely anything in it. And so it's only going to cover the elements that it sees or it has in it and be that high, and that's it. So if we zoom in inside this element, all we're going to see in here is the height of it is going to be as much as this domain name and search, and that's it, the bare minimum height. Because to HTML, this is the only element in here. เพราะว่าเราสามารถ float right, float left. So inside our div, this element and this element no longer technically exist to HTML. It's just this form that exists to HTML. HTML คิดว่าโอ้ยอันนี้คือ float left, float right. โอ้ไม่ต้องคิดเกี่ยวกับ element นี้ตอนนี้ครับแค่จำเป็นต้องคิดเกี่ยวกับ showcase form ที่นี่แค่จำเป็นต้องคิดเกี่ยวกับ the input and the search, and that's it. So ข้างใน background ของเราครับแค่จะให้ background ของ element นี้. This is a little confusing, so review it and go back with it a little bit. But right now, these two elements, HTML doesn't see them. We see them, but HTML doesn't see them. So how do we make sure that we see them? We add in a height. There we go. So now we see our unlimited web hosting coming below the image, and we see what's happening here is our domain name is up here. Wait, something's not right here. Why is my domain name still up top? Well, with floats, we have to turn them on and turn them off. So with floats, we have to, with floats, if we turn them on, we have to turn them off. So how do we turn them off? Turn off floats with a div. And the div will have a style of clear. Now I'll do the long way first. Div, whoops, div. Inside here, I'll go style equals clear both. And I have to do this for both above and below. So already we see that we've cleared the style above. So now that element fell down a little bit. And we have to do it below the element, the last element in the float. So now once we clear it, หลังจากเราลบ float เราใช้ float ที่นี่และใช้ float ที่นี่เราปิด float ข้างบนเราปิด float ข้างล่าง So we have to turn off the floats coming down, we have to turn off the floats going up, so we have this section just as a float section. And we really should do the same thing up here as well because we used floats above and below here for the nav. Now it's much simpler if we just do a class of float so that if we wanted to change it, we can. So what I'm going to do is get rid of these. I'm going to get rid of all 4 of these, go back to what we had, which is really confusing, that up there. And what I'm going to do is use what are called utility classes. So Kangna here, div.clearFloat. And I'm going to put it in the same exact place as we had before. Div clear float, Kangbon, div clear float, and Kanglang, div clear float. Save, nothing changes, ไม่มีเปลี่ยนอะไรเพราะว่าอันนี้คือ class จำเป็นต้องเรียก class ข้างใน style sheet ของเราครับ and under utility class, so above is where I'd want to put this. I could put this anywhere ถ้าเกิดว่าอยากใส่ข้างล่างข้างได้ใส่ได้แต่ควรใช้ utility class เพราะว่าจะใช้ข้างบน web page. We're going to use this in the entire web page, so it doesn't have one specific place. It doesn't apply to a section. It applies to a styling. So we're going to just do a clear both. And once I save this, I'm going to zoom out so we can see the changes. But once I save this, now we have everything float back to normal. So we have the menu up above here. We have our unlimited web hosting all the way to the left. We have our subwoofer all the way to the right. And we have our search all the way at the bottom of that section. Now, right now there's a problem because our unlimited web hosting comes outside of focus. So if floats were confusing, go over this again, turn them on, turn them off, play around with it, play around with the spacing of clearing the float. But this is basically the off button for floats. And here I'm going to write in, if you're going to use floats, remember, if you turn them on, I'll put this on a separate line. Them on, turn them off. All right. So that gets us our floats. So what I'm going to do now is we want all of this stuff in the same line as focus all the way up to contact us. So ครั้งที่แล้วเราเขียนว่า container ที่นี่ครับ So we created a utility class again. We're going to use this same utility class to be able to put these elements inside our web page, inside the parameters or inside the boundary we want. And so for that, I'm going to just simply put both of these elements into what's called a div. And I'm going to make the div a container. So div.container, take that closing div and put it down below my closing float. And now once I've done that, we have all of our elements shrunk down in between our focus and in between contact us. Now it's looking much more similar or much closer. But I did make a mistake. I want this div to encompass both the search form as well. So let me put it inside the search form, adjust the spacing, and now we've got our search form inside here as well, inside the container. All right, perfect. Now I can start working on styling my unlimited text. So showcase text, I want to make this one a width of, let's say 50%. Let's see what happens. So if I change that to a width of 50%, okay, it's looking much better. So now I want to give it a margin top of, let's say 250 pixels. That comes down closer to the middle, which is great. And I want to give, let's say, my showcase title. Make sure I have the right element. I'm going to do a display none. Showcase title goes away. Perfect. I'm going to give this a font size of 40 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty decent. Maybe 50 pixels, make it a little bit bigger. Cool. I liked 40. We'll meet in the middle. 45 looks pretty good. Okay. Then I want my showcase para, the text underneath it. I want that to have a width of, let's say, 70%, and see what happens. Cool, it's coming in, maybe 60%. So now I can shrink that text down to get closer to this look and feel here. Now that has a higher line height, so I'm going to add in a line height to give it some more spacing like this one. I'm going to do 1.5. All right, so we've got some more line spacing there. And here what I want to do is I have multiple options มีทางเลือกหลายมากหลายเพราะว่าถ้าเกิดว่าผมอยากเพิ่ม space เว้นว่างระหว่าง element นี้อาจจะใช้ใน margin ข้างใน showcase title หรือใน showcase para แต่ผมคิดว่า showcase para ข้างในกลางระหว่างtitle และระหว่าง button ด้วยก็ผมจะถ้าเกิดว่าผมสามารถ margin ที่นี่ผมจะได้รับ spacing ทุกที่ในทั้งสองสถานที่ครับ so if I do it in the paragraph in the middle item I can get margin up above and below and be able to accomplish the proper spacing I want here. So let's say margin top I want 20 pixels, left and right 0, but on the bottom I want 40 pixels and 0 again. So that makes it look much cleaner. And maybe at the bottom I'm going to do 50 for right now because those are going to the buttons here are going to increase in size, but we're getting closer to what we want. And now if I look at the get started buttons, I'm going to increase the line height, to about 2 and see what that looks like as well. All right, that looks a little bit cleaner, easier to read. All right, now I'm going to work on my buttons. So what I've done for my buttons is I've got showcase get started button and showcase contact us. So moving down, showcase get started, display none, make sure I have it, and get started goes away. Cool, I have it. Now what I'm going to do is put in a padding of probably 20 pixels. 20 pixels, how does that look? It looks okay. Put in a actually, what I want to do is 20 pixels and 30 pixels left and right and see how that looks. Now I still want it a little bit wider. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. Font size, we want to change this up to 20 pixels maybe and see what that looks like. Okay, getting better. And for my color, I want to change it to white. So now it's white. Now my border, I don't want a border on here. So I can get rid of the border. All right, looking better, looking more transparent. And I want to give it some margin left, or sorry, margin right. And I want to go there, give it 20 pixels. So that moves over the contact us button a little bit. Okay, now I want to be able to get this color, get started. And I have what's called the eyedropper color picker. And it's a plugin you can get pretty easy. What I've done is already gotten it, but if I go to pick a color from this web page, now I can hover over the get started, click the get started, and I now have the color up here that I want to use. I either have it in RGBA, HSL, or I have the raw color in hexadecimal. So I'm going to use the raw color in hexadecimal. And what I'm going to do is introduce you to I'm going to introduce you to variables. So above here at the very top, I'm going to do CSS variables. All right, so CSS variables, we want to stick into the root, root, open bracket, close bracket, and I'm going to give the variable name. So this is the primary color, this is the variable name, and all I'm going to do is paste that in. Now, so the format of this goes variable name, dash dash, variable name, and property. That's it. It doesn't matter what the property is, if it's a box shadow, if it's a border, if it's a width, if it's a margin, whatever it is. Most of the time you're going to see it for primary colors. And so here I'm going to add in secondary color as well. Secondary color. Now in here, my secondary color will be this contact us color, and whatever color that is, 34, 3A40, copy that, pop that in here, there we go. So I have primary, secondary color. What I'm also going to do, just because we're here, is take a look at this red-ish color, and that'll be my tertiary color. I can add in a few other things if I want to, but for right now, I'm going to do just these. And tertiary color. And what I can also do is just add in black, and this will be 000. So that'll be my black. If I wanted to change this to CCC, I can, but my black is going to be 000. How do I use this? Invoke Yangrai, Chai Yangrai Cup. So I'm going to use a background, and then I'm going to use the keyword var, open close parenthesis, and inside dash dash primary color. And there it is. So if I save this, now my background turns into the primary color, which is the same one as here. So if we shrink this down or increase the size, then we'll be able to see that background contrast a little bit easier. And now we can see how it looks in comparison to our regular web page. Now this one has some rounded corners. So we're going to look at the rounding and get the border radius. So we want to change our border radius to, let's say, 10 pixels and see how that looks. So our border radius now is a little bit more rounded and looks all right, looks pretty good. So we also want to add in a margin bottom. So I'm going to change the margin property to 20 pixels on the left, 0 for the top, left, and bottom. I want to do 20 pixels here. And then I also want to, actually, I'm going to leave the margin the way it is, and we'll do the margin on the search form. That should be okay. Now, I'm going to take what we've done here and turn it into a utility class. So what's important here? Well, specific to this, taponi me padding, me background. Sorry, me background chapo, me margin right chapo. After that, everything else is the same. So these elements here, I can reuse them for the next button. So what I'm going to do is cut those out, come to the top in my utility class, and create a utility class of button. Paste that in there. And now what I do, if I save it, this will go back to green, or the primary color, and a margin right. All the other changes I made are lost. But I can come in here and just add the word button. And now all those changes get inherited back again. Why is that important? Because here, now I can just add the keyword button, and contact us changes to the same styling. That's what I care about. That's why utility classes are really powerful. All I have to do is just add in the class into the element, and the attributes get inherited. So now I want to do the showcase contact us. ตอนนี้ผมจะเปลี่ยนไปถึง showcase contact us และจะแค่เปลี่ยนไป background และใช้ secondary color และเปลี่ยนไปถึง secondary color. Awesome. So let's zoom out and let's take a look at what this looks like. All right, much closer to what we want. Much closer to what we want. All right, so now I'm going to work on the search bar below. The search bar below, me showcase form, ข้างใน container แล้ว So all I have to do in here is, whoops. Now I'm going to change up the showcase form and give it a margin on the top. Margin top, let's say 50 pixels. Okay, so that's a little more space. Le ข้างในนี้ มี showcase form มีทั้งสอง input ผมลืมเพิ่ม class so I'm going to add in a class of showcase form form text and showcase form submit showcase form submit. Okay, so inside showcase form text ผมอยากใช้ width of about 70%. Let's see how that looks. Okay, cool, getting better. And padding of about 20 pixels. Okay, looking better. And I want to have a border radius of, let's say, 50 pixels. See what that looks like. Okay, we're getting much better at the rounding. Now, I also want to add in a height. Maybe I'll leave the height element out. But I want to add in this search element inside this element. So if I zoom in here, ถ้าเกิดว่าเราเห็นว่าเกิดอะไรข้างในนี้และถ้าเกิดว่าผมเห็นว่าเกิดอะไรข้างในเรา So if I look at what's happening with our page, right now we have enter domain offer over to the side and we have search over to the side. แต่เขามีด้วยกัน So how do we make these two come together? And the way we do that is showcase form submit. I can simply do a border top left radius or top right radius of 50 pixels. All right. And so we see that smooth over. And I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom right. So we want to change over these two sides. ทั้งสองด้านนี้เราอยากเปลี่ยน So we change these two sides. This one is still a straight bar. This is a straight bar. These two sides. So top right, bottom right. Now we change that. So now I'm going to change the padding here. Padding to 20 pixels. And now we see that it's a bit bigger. Cool. And I'm going to change the background to, I'm going to use our var -- black. Now let's see what happens. Cool. Now I got to change the color inside. Color to FF. And we have our search. Now how do I bring this inside here? แค่จำเป็นต้องใช้ margin minus 50 pixels. So I can go back and forth with my margin, and there we go. Looks like it's right on point. All right, so now if I zoom in, we still have a slight issue where this one might not be even. So some of your browsers may or may not show this as even. They might show it as even. Not too sure what it'll look like on your browser, but just in case you need to change it up, more exact might be for your browser 22 pixels here, 50 pixels on your left and right, 19 pixels on your bottom, and 50 pixels here on your right or your left. And once we do that, we might have a little bit better margin. And let's change this up to 70. And there we go. So depending on your browser, you may need to change it. You might not need to change it. My browser, I don't, but some you might. And so I just thought I'd show that and show you what it looks like if you need to change it. So there we go. And now we have our whole page set up for this look and feel. So if we want to go wider on this, we can. If we want to shoot this out to 80%, we can. And now it takes up a little more space. On this section, they have it a little bit wider. It's very close to what they've got. But basically, we've got a page that has all these elements in together. And we've messed around with being able to do floats. We messed around with getting started and contact us and being able to do variables up at the top and gotten around to combining a search bar element within an input element and being able to show that display. So that's it for today's video. ถ้าเกิดว่ามีคำถามขอให้ได้ครับ or please ask us. Use our Facebook page, use the YouTube page, anywhere you feel like. But leave a comment if you like this video and want to see more. Let us know. If there's anything that I missed or anything that you want to see further in depth, let us know. And with that, thank you very much and have a great day. Bye, everybody.